Welcome to the Ask Your Fantasy Football Whatever cast hosted by Zach of Zach Ball Online, because that's me. And today I'm talking with Ken Griggs, otherwise known as Dexter's Library on Twitter. Hi, how you doing?
I'm good. Thanks for having me on, Zach. Pretty excited here about the NFL draft. Unfortunately, I'm not going. I don't even know if I tried. Somebody asked me that last night. Asked me whether I had actually tried to get tickets, and I didn't. I sent out a couple of feelers with brojackson.com. Obviously, I write for them, but nothing really happened, and tickets were really expensive. I don't. People are paying a lot of money to attend, so I won't be in attendance. I'm actually working the entire weekend, so.
You're probably going to do pretty well. I was going to use a quote you had on one of your recent Bro Jackson articles, and let me just go ahead and say it. And if I do turn off my notifications, oops, that's not going to work. Yes, but what if all of them, these comrades of mine, also struggled like me, looking for some new and original way of living, and only got as far as I have because they were beaten like me by the force of circumstances, society, breeding, a force of nature that renders a man impotent. Now, that's how I feel about the draft. How about you?
Yeah, I don't know if it needs to be that serious, but yeah, I would say that's a pretty good summation of it. It's so funny. I get a kick out of. I mean, I'm all about the draft. I'm going to follow it, and I've read, a couple dozen articles on it leading up. But man, some of these guys are down that rabbit hole, man. They're, you know, some some linebacker from East Mississippi Valley State, and they know everything about the guy, what his first dog's name was, what his great aunt did for a living in the 1950s. It's crazy. I start to wonder, like, and then that guy gets cut a week into camp. It's like, it almost feels sort of like Sisyphus, just pushing a rock up a hill and then watching it go down the other side and walking down there and pushing it back up. But I mean, it turns the light on for some of these guys, which is cool. And I mean, some of these guys know what they're talking about. But then again, I also would make the argument that if you know the jargon of something, you're over halfway to being an expert. I say that about whiskey all the time, about literature. Like 50 keywords, look out. You know what I mean? It's like Catch Me If You Can. What
Yeah,
was
that's,
his name?
that's true.
Frank Frank Abagnale, right?
If you have a few things in life that you're really into, and maybe beer's on my list, but yeah, if you hang out with someone that's drinking a Miller Lite, you're like, oh man. But then someone's talking about, a smoked porter they had, woo, it turns
Right,
out. I think
right.
there's some people who actually like the NFL draft more than the NFL season, it seems, because this is.
It would seem that way. I mean, some of these guys, I mean, this is what they live for. It's funny. Uh, I don't know. I don't know which one it is. Matt Miller or one of those guys says, the day after the draft, he's immediately looking to 2016 and evaluating prospects. And that just seems like madness to me. Like I can't even. I've had enough of the draft already. Let alone that when it's immediately over, I just start watching tape and start writing on guys again. I'm more looking forward to July when I can do a mock draft and not feel like a complete degenerate for the fantasy season.
Yeah, a couple weeks ago in the I'm going for two, we had Bruce Kimbrough on there, and he's a guy that does those draft masters, which is like fantasy football mocks. And we're doing them in April, and some people are just like, "What?" And, but the people
Yeah,
that are
yeah, no,
into it are
there's
really
no
into it.
question. I mean, I feel a lot better about how much I like fantasy football after joining Twitter because some of these guys, no offense, it's great. I mean, I'm into it too, but I mean, I can't imagine. I actually don't have a dynasty team. Uh, I want one, but it's kind of like a PlayStation for me. If I have one, I wouldn't do anything else but that. And then the draft, the NFL draft, and watching college football, it all becomes a little too much for me. I like to have other interests. I've got whiskey. I've got I got this old car that I had redone. I love reading, obviously, and then of course there's Tender, Zach. So there's plenty to be done without
A Renaissance man,
without.
I tell you, there's a lot happening here.
There's a lot happening. I don't want to dive down too many holes.
Well, what's interesting is we met in person twice, although the second time was very, very brief. We met in Chicago, St. Patrick's Day. I'm trying to remember how many years ago, and then you came down to the Titans Bears debacle,
Yes, that
and
game was a
I
disaster.
think we said hi for about 5 minutes, and I think the blood alcohol content was pretty high, but I don't blame you. I think that was like the Bears Super Bowl because they won like 50-3 and didn't even make the playoffs that year. That was the best part about it.
Yeah, I was down there with a bunch of friends. We actually do every year. Some friends get together and we go to a game. I was at the Packers game. Was that 2 years ago? Packers Bears when Aaron Rodgers got hurt, and we usually we pick out a place and then head to the stadium. They went down to Dallas like 3 years ago, and I didn't make that trip, but it's a lot of fun. I think that's the only reason for me to ever actually go to a game is if there's a bunch of friends going, because it's so expensive and it's way better to watch it on TV. You get all the replays, everything is right there, and with fantasy, you can have those live stats, so you can really dig in, and you don't have to be checking your phone every 5 minutes at a game, which is what I do because I have to
Every
follow my
5 seconds. Yeah, last
right.
year the Titans added Wi-Fi, and it was just amazing how horrifyingly bad it was before that. And it still wasn't great, but at least you could get access. And they've caught on. It used to be they'd show score updates once every like 45 minutes, and then they're just putting up actual stats. You don't know what the scores were, but you know what the stats were, which is important.
Right. Yeah. I mean, you got to give the people what they want, and let's face it, fantasy seems to be gaining popularity uh, by the minute, and the daily stuff is crazy. I mean, all these people that are like golf. I mean, Ryan
Oh yeah, ESPN,
Forbesy is
we
on
lost
that
him.
golf stuff, man. Him and Matic, they're nailing it home with golf, and I don't even know where to begin. I can't get into that stuff. I'm not getting down there. That's too far down for me. You know, I got Netflix I gotta watch, so I don't have time for golf DFS right now.
Another sport, yeah. Who's the name? DFS guy was telling me that daily fantasy baseball. It's a lot easier than fantasy football, and everybody who's talking to me about it sounds like just like they're having a heart attack about it every day.
Yeah, I don't, I did, and I mean, I don't even know how it works. I'm a shitty golfer, like, so I can't imagine that I'd be good at DFS where I actually have to evaluate golfers, or is somebody going to do that for me? I mean, I've seen Caddyshack. Does that help? I don't know if like I could,
You might be
if
ahead of the
that would
curve.
help me win at DFS, or you know, you own Bushwood?
But Ken, we did the Ask Your Fantasy Football Expert interview. We did it like probably 4 years ago. I looked, you're in the original 50, and so I thought it'd be fun to look at this interview we did and I'm gonna throw out some of the quotes you
Oh
had
boy, I don't know if
um,
this is a good idea
from
or
our
a bad
interview.
idea.
Twitter is the greatest invention since free porn. I hope to God Stewart's family doesn't visit our site. And the tweets about Adderall and Toro Rojo are not as fictitious as one might believe. So yeah, those are some of that because
Those those all stand true. I stand behind all that. I will stand behind all of my quotes, you know. I'm not going to back down. I'm not going to apologize for any of that.
I try not to get too much on when someone like predicts, oh, Trent Richardson should get his, Hall of Fame jacket or something like that because we all make, I mean, really,
Oh, definitely.
I
Yeah,
think
I mean, uh, I was on Johnny Manziel last year, and that crashed and burned, and a lot of my friends were reminding me of how poorly that went. So
I
yeah,
swear, like a year later, everybody's view has changed. Like, I'm pretty sure last year, 30% of people knew Odell Beckham's name, and now this year, everybody's like, "Oh, I knew he was going to be great." I'm
you're
like,
right. Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, it's very
everything's
easy in
pushing him
hindsight.
down, and then he gets hurt, and like
Yeah, definitely. I mean,
like Johnny
I
Manziel. I was
was
like, I didn't know if he was going to be a good quarterback. I just thought he's a running quarterback, so he'll be good in fantasy.
he might be okay in fantasy, and I think
And
that's what I was
stupid.
thinking. I'm not sure. Yeah, I mean, after having watched him play, he's got a long ways to go, obviously. But another guy I was big on was Jarrett Boykin, and man, I was really disappointed because
Yeah,
I thought that one was going to be okay, and then he kind of came out of the blocks slow. He did have an injury that slowed him, but then it turned out that Devontae was the real deal and really good, so that also pushed on him. But yeah, it's funny how guys will they'll miss a mark and they sweep those under the rug pretty easily. But that's what you got to do. I mean, that's what analysts do. I think being a critic is pretty easy. I mean, I do it all the time with literature. The same sort of things apply. It's all just sort of subjective, and you're just kind of shooting into the smoke and hoping you hit something. Uh, Though I have won three of the last six fantasy championships in my college friends league, which is all that really matters because I don't care about anybody else's fantasy team but my own because I'm superficial that way. So
yeah. It's kind of like, well, I just do two main leagues, and I won the local one. I'm getting the actual trophy back, so that is
yeah,
wonderful. But
I
here's
mean
the
that's wonderful. That I mean I don't need a girlfriend. I don't need good meals. Hell, I'll even drink cheap whiskey. But if the fantasy football championship trophy is back where it belongs here at my apartment, that's all that really matters. So
exactly. Now the draft is what 28, 29 hours away. I don't even know when exactly it starts tomorrow. So what's it like in Chicago? You getting a feel for it?
I just looked at. I mean, I knew where Roosevelt University is. It's down there on Michigan. A couple of people tweeted at me on places to go, and I've actually invited them. I invited everybody, weeks, months ago, that they could stop in the restaurant. I've got a huge place that seems kind of creepy, right? You meet somebody on the internet, and you're like, hey, you can, crash my place if you need to, but. Yeah, I hope that at least a couple of Twitter nerds stop in and we can nerd out about the draft and about the NFL and about fantasy. Uh, I'm at Union Sushi tonight. Union and Franklin Room are owned by the same guy. Franklin Room is a whiskey bar. Union Sushi, obviously, a sushi joint right there in River North. And I was talking to a guy today, and it's easy access. Like Roosevelt's right there on Michigan, and with Uber, every place is like 5-6 minutes away. You know what I mean? So you can get anywhere if you Uber.
Yeah,
But
Uber's
I,
pretty
I
nice.
I mean honestly, I haven't seen like there hasn't been a lot of. I mean, there's so many conferences here that always something going on, big concerts or whatever. So unless you're ingrained into that certain sort of subculture, I doubt it affects the city that much. But we might get a little bit of a push, at the restaurant or whatever. So because they're here all weekend, so I mean, it could spill over.
So it's in the same place all weekend. I didn't even know where it was in Chicago.
I believe so. I'm assuming so that they just they'd be there at Roosevelt for the entire weekend, and that's right on Michigan Avenue. Like I think it's like 5 North Michigan. So the problem with the Loop right there is there's not a lot of stuff. Uh, a lot of really great restaurants and bars and stuff. So you need to head to West Loop. West Loop is probably the place. Tons of really great restaurants and stuff to do. And then probably I'm biased because I work in River North. There's a lot of things to do in River North too. So but I don't know how busy all those people are. I'm assuming that a lot of those guys have to, be at beck and call of what's happening there at Roosevelt. So uh, I may go down on if I get ambition on Sunday and I'm not too hungover. I got a buddy coming into town. I'm gonna watch, the Derby and the Pacquiao fight. I mean, it's a pretty cool sports weekend this weekend with everything that's going on. I'm actually going to a Cubs game, got the Derby, Pacquiao, and then I might go down on Sunday and just kind of bump around and see what's going on outside of the venue.
Now, is there any chatter about your team, the Packers, and the draft? Because it seems like every year they just draft an offensive or defensive lineman who never does anything in the first round.
Right.
What's the talk?
Well, I had seen that I think there was a linebacker that they were leaning towards, and I got to be honest, I'm completely ignorant on it because I haven't read much about it. I've become the laziest Green Bay Packers fan probably on planet Earth. I'm such a individualistic sort of Ayn Randian football fan at this point because I'm so entrenched in fantasy football. I mean, like for example, last year I had Alshon Jeffrey on 3 different squads, and so I was pretty much cheering for the Bears to, either be down by a lot or win by a lot and have Alshon go crazy. But I think, it's always, Ted Thompson that guy is something special. That coaching staff too, I think, they churn it out every year. So there's always that chance he just takes somebody no one's ever heard of. And I would imagine it wouldn't be any different this year. Or, maybe make a big splash and move up. I don't know. Somebody was saying that Shane Ray or something was going to slip, and that would be great. Character issues or whatever. Could you imagine if there was a draft on Twitter, my character issues, I'd probably slip to the 4th round, and I think I'd be a great pick. I mean, I'm consistently not funny and good drug tips, lots of whiskey tips, so I'd be a good 4th round pick because of my character issues. Guy stays out till 4 in the morning, smokes too much weed, spends too much time on Tinder. Got a lot of character issues that can.
So is there? I don't even know the Bears. Since they're like in the top 10, there seems to be more interest, maybe because I pay attention to the Titans to the earlier picks in the first round. So I don't even know. The Bears just need like an entire defense. Right?
Yeah, they're gonna have to. I think they're gonna have to invest in like 11 first-round picks to get some of those holes filled up on the defense, and then. Yeah, I mean, with Brandon Marshall gone, that makes my love for Alshon grow exponentially. I'm pretty excited about grabbing him. I think somebody was saying, well, it didn't move him up that much in their rankings, but I mean, he's still going to be kind of cheap-ish. So I don't know. I don't want this to become an entire Alshon podcast, but I'm pretty excited about him moving forward as far as the Bears go. And then, you would think that they're going to have to maybe. I mean, I don't know what I know nothing outside of like the top, 3 or 4 quarterbacks, but you would think that they're going to have to address that at some point because Jay's definitely not the answer. So I don't know if they do that this year or, what their plan is. They've kind of got that new regime in there too, so we'll see what happens with that.
That's an underrated.
They open. Yeah, and they open with Green Bay here in the city. I was kind of hoping to maybe try to score tickets to that because it won't be cold outside and you can go and be, you don't have to dress like an Eskimo and drink a bunch of whiskey. Not that I wouldn't drink a bunch of whiskey if it was hot outside.
I might slow things down or something.
That doesn't matter. There's no correlation there.
Yeah, I saw. The Titans have just become ultimately boring as a franchise, but people were talking about them because they had that number 2 pick. I think I saw a rumor. I was at the gym, so I couldn't really see the details that the Browns were offering them their 2 first-rounders. And I was like, yeah, but that means the front office has twice as many picks to make. So I'm not.
Right. That just gives them 2 more excuses to totally screw up the picks. This is interesting. The Browns just can't get out of their own way. It seems like some of these franchises, I can't figure it out. Like, honestly, I think it goes back. Fantasy Douche wrote that book, and now I'm trying to plug it here for him, but I forget the name of it. And I read it, and it was basically saying like it's this, the NFL is a clique. It's like anything else. I bartend here in the city. I have made a lot of really good connections and whatever, so I have a really good job. And it's funny because I mean I know a lot of stuff, and I'm a good bartender, but I'm probably like, the Mike Shanahan of bartenders. Like, I probably should have been let go a while back, and new blood should have brought in with somebody that really knows the game and once is hungry about it. But it's like once you're ingrained in it, you can do whatever. I like Jeff Fisher. I mean, the guy constantly on Twitter, people are giving him shit. The guy has never really won anything. He's basically a perennial 8-8 coach, and yet he continues to get jobs. And I think it's similar to front offices. These guys are just, they've been in the business for 20, 25 years. Well, give this guy a shot, Jeff Ireland, classic example. Like, these guys possibly don't know any more than other people, and yet they continue to get jobs. So I don't know how you solve that. I guess I don't really care. As long as I can still play fantasy, it doesn't matter who's in the front office.
So as a bartender, do you have to put up with as many fantasy football stories as fantasy football experts do? Because, people like to talk, right?
Oh, definitely. I mean, I'll bring it up. I'll talk about just about anything. But if people want to talk fantasy, I had a guy in the other night, and he was, I think JJ would have loved it because he was going on about how he was going to take a quarterback. He was going to take Aaron Rodgers. He says, I'm going to take him in the first round. He says, I always take quarter. And obviously it has to do with scoring or whatever, but I was kind of telling him that, I usually have no interest in a quarterback until like the 8th or ninth round. And to be honest with you, I'm a little too excited about like guys like Derek Carr and Blake Bortles. I just feel like, and Ryan Tannehill is another guy. Tannehill being the top of those three, but I'm kind of looking at quarterbacks, always in the later rounds. I never take one in the early rounds, and this guy was just not having it. He was dead set on getting a quarterback in the first round, and you still have these people that it's crazy. No matter how much you try to educate them about how the game is played and how the game is won, they just refuse to see it. Nope, I'm gonna do what I've always done. And I'm kind of fascinated by it.
Well, I think a lot of
stubbornness can be a virtue.
Well, a lot of things you do in fantasy, especially if you're not crazy obsessed like we are, is you go based on either a gut feeling or like one random example. Like if you drafted Tom Brady in the first round the year he tore his ACL, you probably were off taking quarterbacks early for the rest of your life.
Yeah, no shit. Yeah, that would sour you. Right, definitely. Luck's an interesting one too. Like, I owned him as many places as I could in the last 2 years, and now last year I was in a league, and it was a whiskey league. Okay, so the winner of the league got 13 bottles of whiskey from anywhere from $20 to $30.
Okay.
And my team was bananas. How good it was. I had Julio. It doesn't matter. I'm not going to go on about that. But the point is I had Andrew Luck as my quarterback, and then he literally shit the bed. Like, I don't know if he was taking Ursay type drugs there in those last 3 weeks, but that was absolutely brutal. And I got to be honest, he might have soured me for a while. I probably won't. I mean, unless he just falls into my lap and the situation seems right, I probably won't take the guy again because I'm a little angry. I'm a little pissed off.
Yeah, those onesie positions, they really can end your life. Because, I mean, in our local championship, I had Tony Romo. My opponent had Aaron Rodgers, and Tony Romo, like, outscored him by, like, 20 points.
Yeah.
Aaron Rodgers, strangely, has kind of faded, it seems, in the
Definitely.
playoffs.
He's done the same sort of shit. I don't know what it is with those guys. I don't know if it's fatigue, if it's lack of interest and they're focusing on the playoffs, or I don't really know, but those guys have burned a lot of people in the last couple of years, and that goes into the late round quarterback thing. Why the hell would I take a guy that I know is going to fade when I could take a guy that's kind of middle of the road and then fill in if I need to later? I mean, Ryan Tannehill last year, week 16, what did he throw, 5 touchdown passes, and he won me my league essentially. And he's always going to be my man now from now on. Like I tell my friends, if Ryan Tannehill were a real Dolphin, I would love to swim next to him.
That's pretty frightening and kind of warming at the same time. I don't know. But speaking of warming, so I'm a beer guy. Like I pretty much go beer all the way. But from listening to you and listening to Brian, you guys are really big into the whiskey thing. So how does a guy make that transition? Or is that the beginning of the end for me if I try?
No, you'd be fine. I think the best course of action is to start with a bourbon, something a bit sweeter. Back it off with a little bit of water, uh, and this way you're kind of easing into that. I mean, you can kind of ease in with something that's, I don't know, like a weeded bourbon kind of thing. So anything that's on the sweeter side, Maker's Mark is a perfect sort of training wheels whiskey, little Makers and water. And then once you start to get your head around that, or Makers as an old fashioned, which is definitely a little sweeter and makes it more palatable. And then once you're down that road, you're able to kind of branch out. And I'm leaning more towards scotches these days. The last year or so, I've started to really dig into all that. And it's funny, somebody asked me a question about tequila the other night, and I said, I flat out don't know. We can Google it if you want. And they kind of laughed, and they were kind of like, you're a bartender, don't you know? And it's like, yeah, I know some, but I'm not gonna be your gin expert. I'm not gonna hold your hand through, the 150 vodkas that are on the market, because to be honest with you, most of that stuff is just sort of, you could taste 100 of them, really good ones, and they'd all taste the same. But if you taste 100 different whiskeys that are all really good, they're all going to taste different. It's just a better alcohol. For the reason is that there's more to be tasted, and whiskey's kind of like human beings. Like, they've got personality. Some of them are spicy, some of them are sweeter, some of them are you want to just pour down the drain. So I think that's the appeal of whiskey, yeah, at the end of the day. But that, I don't know why I like it so much, but it's something that I've kind of grown to know a lot about.
Well, I kind of feel similar about beer, just the ability to have a variety of experiences. But since we're
Yeah,
running out of
definitely. I
time,
mean, well, I mean, beer isn't far off, and especially with what they're doing with beer now, I think is a lot of fun. And again, I know a little bit about it. I mean, just from working in the industry. I mean, we've got like 40 beers on our menu, and I enjoy beer, and I'll have one once in a while, but it's seldom you would see me without a whiskey in my hand, just because that's what I enjoy drinking. I don't get hangovers. I don't know what that's about. Got to give it up to the Lord for that one. But yeah, I don't know. So I drink whiskey, and that's pretty much all I ever drink. So
so what's a cocktail choice for draft weekend?
what's a what?
Since you're Mr. Cocktails on Bro Jackson, what's one that you would whip up for the draft?
I think something that it's people are complaining that it's cold in Chicago, but I actually think it's nice. It's like high 50s, low 60s, which is a perfect time, I think, to buy a cheap whiskey like Old Granddad, or Wild Turkey 101, or even Rittenhouse. Rye is a nice whiskey, and you don't have to feel bad about mixing it. You can put a little fresh lemonade in it, and then some Angostura, or you can even get a really good ginger ale. There's this ginger ale called Blenheim, and it burns your throat. It kind of tastes like your throat's got gonorrhea. Not that I know what that's like, but it's really, really good. And so something like that with some Angostura bitters, it's just fantastic. And you can drink on those for hours at a time, which is kind of what, I envision Jim Irsay doing, only with lots of tabs of acid and ibogaine in the war room for the Indianapolis Colts while reading passages from Dharma Bums by Jack Kerouac. Uh, anyway, maybe that's
Yeah.
just me.
Dude, you should be quite the crew. I really think so this fall the Bills are playing at the Titans, and I think we're getting Brian, the street free agent, to come up from Dallas. If that happens, she get you there as well. Because drinking with the two of you would be quite an experience. I may not survive, but what a way to go.
Yeah, I think that actually sounds fun. I want to do. There's so many Twitter people here in Chicago, and I want to do a hangout at some point. I mean, I've met Evan Silva several times. He's come in the restaurant, and you know, it's usually pretty cheap if you're drinking with me. So, that's why I was kind of hoping some of the Twitter people that are in town they stop in. I mean, I understand they're really busy and whatnot, but it'd be fun to meet people. It's always fun to meet the people from Twitter because, again, and I agree with this. I think Twitter is fantastic. It's a great way to meet people. The energy is usually pretty good. People are open to ideas. I mean, you've got trolls, but you've got that everywhere. I'm sure I'll meet some asshole tonight you just got to bend for it and not pay attention to the bad parts of it.
Pretty much, yeah. I got to meet JJ. Saw him in Charlotte last weekend, so
Oh,
that
really?
was kind of fun to meet him in person. Even dropped him off a beer at the end. See if I get a review on that one.
Nice.
I had happened to have a few in my trunk. Yeah, I don't always travel with beer, but when I do, I got something you'll probably like. So tell
Right.
everybody where they can find you because you're doing, you talk about football and nonsense, but you got this serious literary mind. So tell everybody where they can find you online and on Twitter and all that good stuff.
Well, I'm at Dexter's underscore library, where I tweet about just about everything. Hasn't been a lot of football lately, but we'll get back to that fantasy football very soon. And then I'm on brojackson.com, doing a lot of literary stuff on there. I enjoy it. I don't know if I don't know diddly squat poo about it, but it doesn't matter because I enjoy it. It's like anything, take an interest in it and then go from there. So those are my two main spots. Every once in a while, Project Roto, Roto, formerly Roto X, have me on, and I'll do something over there. But generally speaking, that's where you can find me. So
Sounds good. Well, it's a very good talk to you. Get to see you in person again. I got to get up to Chicago again one of those days.
awesome. Yeah, thanks a lot for having me on, Zach.
And basically, Zach_Loff. Find me on Twitter, and I'll be posting this fairly shortly. But it was good just to get that experience. Yeah, you just Dexter's_library. He will lead you not astray in Chicago, and my cat is moving my computer. So anyway, thanks again. We'll try some more of these. Just do fantasy football people I've talked with before, but we can always talk again. So everybody have a good day, and let's enjoy this draft weekend. It's going to be crazy as it always is. So talk to you later.
Thanks, Zach.